Dave Palumbo here with an unscheduled rant. That's right. I got something to get off my chest. I just watched the Rich Piana video where he insinuates that Nolotil is the new site enhancement, I guess you could say, chemical of today, and Synthol is passe, and I gotta respond. And I gotta start out by saying Rich Piana and I are friends. We go way back. We used to compete together. We both respect each other as businessmen, as men. But when I don't agree with something, I got to call it out. And I'm calling it out right now. Rich Piana says that no one uses Synthol anymore and that everyone uses Nolotil, and he said that it doesn't work. And I got to just dispute this. First of all, I would say 75 to 80% of the top pros, and I'm being conservative, use Synthol. I know it for a fact. The reason I know it is because I sell it on DavePalumbo.com, and I know who buys it. So unless they're buying it and just putting it on their shelf, that right there and then, it's wrong. Number two, Nolotil is not the same thing as Synthol, and it's not better than Synthol. It's something you can use the last week before a show. And unfortunately, for most people, Nolotil, just like the old Essiclean, and if you guys remember, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I found some old Essiclean in my house, like the last 4 bottles in existence, and I put a picture of it up on Facebook. But Essiclean and Nolotil, which were substances, water-based substances, that is, that were injected into the muscle to enhance them in a rapid, fashion within a day or so, right before a show, are things that don't work on everyone. The reason I say that is because back in the day when it was readily available, that is Essiclean, people used it and not everyone got good results. There weren't guys all walking around with huge arms. And the reason was it doesn't work. Okay? It works on people with genetically superior muscle bellies. What do I mean by that? I mean that when you get a guy like Flex Wheeler, who's an admitted Essiclean user, you get a guy like Phil Heath who has genetically great arms, and you put something like Nolotil into it or Essiclean into those arms, it enhances them. It makes them bigger. It makes them look rounder. It makes them look shapelier. Okay? But when you give it to someone who has an arm that's lacking in size and detail, and you put that in there, it does nothing. It doesn't do anything. Believe me, I tried it back in the day when my arms weren't that big. Okay? It didn't add that much. You feel like it's adding something, but you look at it on stage and it doesn't do anything. The reason why Synthol works is because it works by 2 mechanisms. Number one, the oil volumizes the muscle. And it's important to understand that all Synthol is not created equal. Okay, there's the Synthol that has real science behind it, like Chris Clark's synthesized pump and pose, Steve DeLuca's painless pumps. These have real science behind them. Okay, protein carriers are in there. Enzymes that help break down the compounds, the fatty acids, and cleave them into small pieces so the body can reabsorb them. There's science in these compounds. Then you got the guys who decided, hey, I'm going to make my own Synthol and sell it because I can make a lot of money. And they just go get oil and they hopefully sterilize it and they put it in bottles and they sell it, for big profit. And those guys are idiots. Well, maybe they're not the idiots, but maybe the people buying the stuff are idiots because there's no science in there. That's just oil. And those products will just volumize or fill up the muscles with oil. But Synthol is designed to do more than that. Okay, it's designed to hype the metabolism in the muscle that it's injected into. Okay, and by doing so, it actually makes the muscle leaner. People who inject Synthol into different body parts, and I only rarely recommend it goes into round body parts, biceps, triceps, calves, a little bit on the delts maybe. I really wouldn't do too much more. Very, 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 very little in the pecs because it will look lumpy. And once again, the reason why some people who do Synthol, it looks good is because they're good artists. And some people who use it or abuse it, as I like to say, it looks terrible in. And also, I want to just say something about the way Rich said it's used. Synthol is not injected under the muscle. It's injected deep into the muscle, and it makes the muscle spread, okay, from a volumization standpoint. But then also from a muscle building standpoint, when you hype the metabolism, and a lot of you guys who follow my videos on the science of nutrition know that Scott Connolly coined the term nutrient partitioning. And he called the positive nutrient partitioning foods that actually will make the body build muscle using stored body fat as the fuel source. Obviously, the more positive nutrient partitioning foods you put into your body, okay, the better your body will look composition-wise. Muscle bigger, fat stores smaller. Well, Synthol acts as like a positive food partitioning product. When it's injected into the muscle, okay, the oils in there enable the cell to go after these oils, use them as a fuel source, and in doing so, hypes the metabolism of those cells and then causes the cells to eat up more fat around them. So like I said, guys who inject Synthol regularly into different body parts will notice that those body parts look leaner. Now, if you inject the oil too shallow, okay, you will smooth the muscle out and make it not look good. If you put it deep enough, not under the muscle, deep into the muscle, and I got news for you. You could take an 1.5 inch, okay, 22 gauge syringe and put it into your bicep, and you're not going to go under the muscle, okay? That's a pretty thick muscle. I got news for you. It goes deeper than you think. And if you put it deep into the muscle, it'll lift the muscle up and spread it out, and it will look better, okay, if it's done accurately. If you do too much of the stuff, it starts leaking out of the muscle, and then you get that blurred look. And then in some guys that put way too much into the muscle, it actually goes under the skin, and it just looks like a bag of oil in there. So once again, there's abusers and users, and you have to decide what you want to do. But I will tell you this, more great arms, okay, on the pro level and the top amateur level are due to Synthol probably than training, Nolotil, and good genetics combined, okay, because it's used wisely. I actually give out a protocol to people who email me for nothing. I would rather people use it responsibly than use it irresponsibly. And the bottom line is that it works, okay? And it doesn't cause large amounts of scar tissue buildup, as Rich also implied. The products that do that are the oils that these guys sell that are immunoreactive. Because you have to remember, you must use an oil that the immune system will not see as a foreign body. Because if the immune system sees something as a foreign body, it will attack it, encapsulate it, and try to protect the body from it. That causes massive amounts of scar tissue buildup, and that's what a lot of guys noticed who were trying to inject mineral oil. Mineral oil is very immunoreactive. Okay, when you inject mineral oil or any oil that is immunoreactive, the body encases it and creates scar tissue, and it looks horrendous. Now, I don't know. Greg Valentino claims he never used any Synthol, and I believe it. He did use a lot of test propionate, which is also very irritating, and that's probably why he has a lot of scar tissue. We don't know what else he put in his arms, but those arms are not arms that anyone's going to go up on a stage and try to compete with. He was doing it to be sensationalistic. But the bottom line is that a good product, Synthol, like I said, like Chris Clark's Synthesize Pump and Pose or the DeLuca brand of painless pumps, doesn't cause scar tissue buildup, okay? Some guys will get scar tissue buildup because they reuse the same syringe over and over, and they create irritation, and that's another mistake guys make. But once again, if you're smart about how you apply the Synthol, okay, you get a product that is legitimate, that not only will volumize the muscle, but also hype the metabolism so that you build muscle and you burn the stored body fat that's in that vicinity, you'll see a leaner look, you'll see a rounder look, you'll see an improved look, and it doesn't matter if you have the genetics of Phil Heath or not. Nolotil to me is a bullshit drug, to be honest with you. Most people have no right to use it. It's not going to do anything to benefit them. There's probably 1% of the population that will actually look better on that drug out there, and they're probably the elite top 6 in the Olympia. Unless you have genetically gifted arms, no pun intended, I would not suggest using it. All you can do is screw yourself up. And remember, never experiment the weekend of a show on something you never used before. So if you're going to do something, you do it before. Another thing, Synthol is not something you just use for 2 weeks. It's something that you use in the off season. It's something you use pre-contest. The longer you use it, the better and more permanent the muscle gains are. There was actually a study done in Amsterdam, never published, because there was a company that was looking to buy Chris Clark's formula from him a number of years ago, and I had met with them in Manhattan and talked to them about the science of the product, and they had done MRI studies to actually show and demonstrate that more muscle was actually built over a 6-month period of applying Synthol into different various body parts. They were actually using it in women's glutes to try to enhance muscularity and reduce body fat there, and they showed that also was the case. I don't know what the reason was. I think that they weren't able to get the equivalent of whatever the FDA over in Holland would be to approve it for medical use, but the product worked, and that was the key. And I thought that's what impressed me, and that was the first time I actually found out the science of how the product worked. I always just assumed it was an oil, but it wasn't. I didn't realize it had protein carriers, and that inside the muscle cells release lipoprotein lipase enzyme, which will cleave those fatty acid molecules there, which then the cells absorb. One of the reasons a lot of people don't realize why Chris Clark synthesized hurts a little bit is because when the enzymes leave the muscle cells to go eat up this fat that's injected into the muscle, okay, the cells get dehydrated. And when the cells get dehydrated, it causes a prostaglandin reaction in the body, which will cause pain and aches, almost like what happens when you get the flu. That's why if you take 2 Tylenol, that pain will usually go away. The painless pumps formulation has adapted to that science and has put electrolytes into it. So the electrolytes restore that fluid balance, and that's why you don't get any pain on injection with that compound. And once again, I sell both of those at DavePalumbo.com because those products have science. Remember, you get what you pay for in this world. I've talked about it with regard to whey protein isolates. I've talked about it with regard to companies who use proprietary formulas versus those who have full transparency, and it applies to Synthol as well. There's a science here. Don't listen to sensationalistic YouTube videos that don't document science, that just are trying to get views. I love you, Rich Piana, but it was an irresponsible video you put out. It really didn't give the true picture, and hopefully now people understand what the science is of what's going on. And if anyone has any questions, I'm always open to answering any of them. You can contact me at huge285@AOL.com. I'm Dave Palumbo with another rant.